things to many people. But when we think about insurtechs, it's very important that we think about growth around sort of the ability to increase access to the customers that we serve. And ideally, right, part of micro insurance is it requires a lot of people using it.
Yeah.
And being able to think about how you do that and how you
Mm.
increase your impact is really what we're going to talk about today. And
Mm.
Adelaide is joining to tell us a bit of her story, her journey with Blue Wave, ideally how you got here. That's what I'm excited about. But also, what has been your journey as you've thought about increasing impact? Um,
Mm.
and as you've thought about growth, right? What have you grappled with? What have been the challenges? What are some, and I think ideally, right, I'd love for those in the cohort, right? What are some of the things you really want to know from someone who is continuing to scale? I'm sure you said this has been a long journey. So we want to hear that journey and would love to think about, what are the big takeaways that more or less established in this moment insurtechs can take and ideally can use to help themselves as
Yeah.
they think about what it means to increase impact. So
Okay.
just so excited to have you here. I know you'll do much better justice introducing yourself,
Mhm.
but we're so grateful to have you on the call.
I mean, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here. Unfortunately, my screen is completely zoomed out in, so I can't even see who is present at the moment. But I just want to thank you guys for taking your time to listen to me. I think my instructions are to just spend about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes tops, just talking about what Emma has highlighted, my journey. What are the challenges? What do I really grapple with, and what have I perceived as lessons? And I'll share with you some experiences. Some quite largely are not 100% blue wave, but from my previous experiences, that led me to build blue wave as I did. And then I'll just open the floor to all of you to dig in. I will start with a very strong disclaimer that I am nowhere, or we are rather, Blue Wave is nowhere close to the kind of impact and scale that we have envisioned and we have strategized over in the past 5 years. And I somehow feel embarrassed and I almost want to cringe that that the expectations of a humongous traction and scale, we are nowhere close to that. But I think soon, in the very near future, we will be achieving the kind of dreams that we have envisioned, and we certainly have some very critical lessons that would be helpful to all of you. I'm just experiencing a little bit of background noise. It would be really nice if we could just mute so that thank you so much. Oh my, wow, yeah, that really helped. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to sharing my journey. I'll be looking forward to just giving you what my thoughts are in regards to what scale is, because I have encountered massive scale in some cases even overnight, but sometimes that scale that comes too quickly is not sustainable. And what do you do after when your core business model is completely challenged? So I will start by just giving a little bit about my experience, where I have been, where I have worked, because these are very instrumental thoughts that have gotten me to build to me and my team to build Blue Wave as we did. So I have about 16 years, 17 years roughly, of experience in the insurance space. I started working very early while I was in campus. During the long holidays, I was one of the lucky people who got picked by CFC Life, which is now Liberty, to just to hustle to hustle for them. So for 4 or 5 months, I was literally a hands-on the handy lady shifting files from one place to the other. And what is interesting about digitalization and innovation is that was the season. This is around 2004, 2005. And this is a season where insurance companies had just begun their archiving. So you're finding that every single thing for the last 2 to 3 or 4 decades is being archived, and data and information is being scanned in usual scanners and being put in. And at the time, this was like the largest innovation. Then I worked for Jubilee within the pensions department. But what was really critical about scale and growth is I was very lucky or preview to be the supervisor for what they called a hub and spoke model. So here, Jubilee was looking at harmonizing all the operations within the region, that is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and they were setting up new offices in Mauritius and Burundi. And basically, they required Kenya to be the operational hub. So it just gave me quite a lot of insights on how demystifying expansion and how operations can be synchronized centrally, and operations to such a huge scale, because you're all familiar with how large Jubilee is as an organization. And just to be at the heart of that moment was incredible. And if such models had actually existed all the way to now, especially with the COVID and the need for people to work remotely, you can imagine how far advanced organizations can be if such a model is enhanced. So that experience, about 2 years thereabout, Jubilee, I worked there for about 5 years, but the last 2 years of my tenure there were just me completely seeing the ease of entering new markets. And Burundi was a complete French speaker. And we had to synchronize operations in a new market, which is not Anglophone. And we need to ensure that they can communicate at the hub and still debit and still issue policies, and claims are being settled from the local center, which was Nairobi. So when you're looking at scale, when you're looking at growth, you cannot ignore operations and how your operations will look like. If you need to set up offices in each and every entity within the continent, there's a very big likelihood it will be extremely expensive, and it will be very hard to pick yourself up. But we're going to talk about different kind of distribution models later. But that experience supervising this hub and spoke model was quite eye-opening for me to that extent, and as I said, just to see the ease of and the ability to actually do that. And from there, I was, of course, a head of products for APA. That was purely a product development role, and we did design some products that didn't go really far, and quite a lot of investments were put in. So I did learn a few lessons there on don't get too romanticized with your concepts and your ideas. You really need to embrace the market and the customer first before you deploy what I call, in my opinion, boardroom products. But we did have some other very good successes in product development there. We did clean up a lot of the products that were redundant, etc. So I left APA and moved to MicroEnsure. I was the country manager for MicroEnsure in Kenya. And for me, that was one of the most remarkable, eye-opening experiences of my life. I saw projects and products really scale, and I really stay up to date without even batting an eyelid that MicroEnsure indeed is the pioneer of microinsurance globally. And we deployed some products for MNOs, and we saw some markets, some OPCOs, as we call them, really pick up and run. The likes of Ghana, Nigeria was extremely exciting. And we did see some markets pick up really quickly, but fail also really quickly. So just having the concept of understanding how insurance can be used to solve problems for other industries will be very critical for you to understand how to scale. And lessons that I just gathered from Liberty Life, at that time CFC, from Jubilee with the hub and spoke model, from designing multiple products for APA, to running a country office of one of the leading pioneer microinsurance companies globally, really gave me a basket full of experience, challenges, successes, and failures to start now putting Blue Wave together. And I will be sharing snippets of these little experiences here and there with you. And I'm hoping that I would help some of you maybe avoid some mistakes. I'll perhaps hopefully give you ideas that you had perhaps not thought about, maybe either whether you had the experience or not. And I'll be happy to just engage with you afterwards to see how these thoughts or these experiences have influenced you on a personal level. So let me now get to Blue Wave. And before I share now kind of these experiences around scaling and growth and even fundraising to some extent, because fundraising and access to capital is so critical for growth and expansion, as I've experienced. It's good that I just frame your mind on exactly what Blue Wave is and what Blue Wave is about, and use that now to start bringing out different distribution partners that may be ideal for you to scale. Yes, microinsurance, without a doubt, you are going nowhere if you cannot be able to think very critically of aggregators who will help to push you forward. Microinsurance is extensively heavy on tech. Microinsurance is extensively heavy on the distribution partner. You cannot fiddle around on a retail platform, because you will just not scale fast enough and be extremely painfully expensive, as we experienced with different products here and there. And having a really clear understanding of what your business does is a first step for you to actually harness how you're going to grow and how you're going to just erupt and grow organically. So we always start with the story of Joseph. I apologize for all of those who have heard this story 100 times maybe. We don't fail to share our story, whether we are talking to, whether we are talking to our border clients in the market, whether we are talking to investors, new clients, partners, aggregators, you name it. We always start with framing the story of Joseph. So we share a sad, and this story is accessible in our website. You can watch the video. It's a sad and true story of one of our clients called Joseph. He was a fisherman in Lake Victoria, and his wife was diagnosed with kidney failure. Joseph needed 36,000 Kenya shillings, about $360, to take his wife for dialysis and start treatment. But unable to raise this, he does what most Africans do. They go to the community to fundraise. That is our default insurance instrument. We call it Harambe. And it took Joseph 2 weeks, where he was only able to raise about 24,000 shillings. So a bit desperate, Joseph was forced to sell his fishing boat to start the wife's treatment. Unfortunately, because the treatment was starting late, she passes on. And Joseph has to go back again to the community for a Harambe for her burial. It's only during the Harambe stage that Joseph raises around 65,000 Kenya shillings, thereabout, almost 70,000, literally double what he needed in the first place to take her for treatment. This is a very clear indication that the traditional or the African instruments that are available right now for insurance may come short. And if we leave the continent to these structures only, then you can see clearly why health shocks, death shocks, weather shocks render people completely the poverty levels literally get worse, because the emergency or the risk shocks that are available are instruments that might not always come to play or to help at the point of need. So it's Joseph's story that we say that it's who we work for. He's our client, and all our innovation and our thought process is, how are we making Joseph's life better? How are we ensuring that with premiums of as low as 100 bob, he can be able to start having access to insurance instruments to ensure that he doesn't get to that level. So at Blue Wave, we work for Joseph. And to be able, before you start thinking of scale, before you start getting your excitement around your solution and your tech and how fancy your mobile app is and how you've integrated it with with blockchain and AI, you have to just understand that Joseph doesn't require that complexity. And he just requires that you understand what his problem is and you can give him a solution. So we look into cost, understanding, trust, and access of insurance, and we solve these three clear problems so that they can have access. Even if you have the most amazing technology platform and Joseph, for instance, cannot access it, then you're going to have a very hard time scaling and growing that product. Because before you actually start even thinking of the distribution partner, Joseph has got to need that product. Because if the distribution partner is either tricking the client to buy cover, then the product is not going to be sustainable. You'll have a lot more clients out there who are grumbling, and we already know that insurance is at a critical stage in regards to trust. So everywhere, whenever we do focus groups out in the market, we have a huge challenge. We always end up being like in an emergency room with people laying out all their challenges of policies that have not been serviced well, premiums that they paid but were not debited. I mean, we always end up having some sort of an insurance clinic, and we try to fill up that void and question. So if you cannot think very critically of what the problem is and how your solution is addressing those problems, then you will come back to have an avalanche of problems, because insurance also comes in with a lot of poor experience. Many people, even those who have encountered insurance, know somebody who has encountered a bad insurance experience. So you have to be ready that your solution has got to be very critical to solve those. So I have here a microinsurance kind of landscape. I think this is around 20. Yeah, sure. Somebody, do you want to stop me and we go slide by slide, or do I just keep up?
Your screen just stopped. Well, your screen stopped sharing, at least for me. Any chance you could share it again?
Sure. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So what are you guys seeing? You guys can see Joseph.
Let's see.
I can't see anything.
No, we can't see.
Oh dear. Okay, so let me stop share just as I've been instructed.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah,
but also, I watched the story of Joseph early on when I was, learning more about, and hearing you tell that story, every time.
Wow.
It gets me to the next level. It's
wow.
Just it is one of those for me.
That is so important for me. I mean, it is a true fact of what can you guys see Joseph right now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep,
sorry.
I can see.
Okay,
Yeah.
Good. I'd gone on for a bit. So I talked about the problem. So perhaps you didn't get to see this slide, and you need to just.
Perfect.
Yeah, you need to have a very clear understanding of what the problem you're having, and the four core problems or the barriers to insurance uptake from our analysis and experiences. Cost is an issue. Understanding of insurance, that's a big issue, because a large part of a market, we're looking at close to 1.2 billion Africans who have a very minimal understanding, if any, of insurance. So before you start tackling really high tech software, you need to have the basic knowledge that a huge population, literally almost 80% of the market, still don't really have a clear understanding of how insurance is. And even us who have experienced insurance for very many years, we still grapple with some of the technical jargon. So you can imagine those who do not have that access. And then, as I talked about trust, people still struggle with trust. So your solution, if you want it to scale, you have to know that you're solving a big trust issue. And then, of course, for us, we put technology at the very end. Only when you've solved the cost issue, the understanding issue, the trust issue, then our fancy platforms, our fancy AI-driven blockchain solutions begin to make sense. But what do you put first? Do you put yourself and how amazing you feel your product is, or do you put Joseph first? So putting Joseph first will give you a lot more headway in scaling up your product. And then really focusing on what your solution is, and really having an intimate relationship with how your solution is working, and being out there with the client, really engaging with them on whether the solution works, and iterating it over and over before even launching, before running to IRA with the insurance company. If you're insurtechs like such as myself, where we are wholly dependent on another insurance company, are you sure you've iterated these questions over and over at time to ensure that your solution is really what is needed? So this is a slide that you guys stopped me at. This is kind of like a landscape, microinsurance landscape. I would say almost 6-7 years ago. And largely, a lot of it has not changed. In fact, in many of these markets, the penetration specifically for microinsurance has been dropping, and we need to really critically analyze, and not even in microinsurance rather, but insurance in general has been dropping. And we need to ask ourselves, what is really going on with this insurance conversation? Except for Southern Africa, almost all insurance penetration levels are below 3%. So that is an alarming figure, and we need to start asking ourselves before, how do we scale if people can't understand the products we're selling? They cannot access it because you've designed a product with such fancy tech, and they have a simple feature phone. So how do you scale when you can't reach the largest population? Your access to smartphones. How many clients have access to smartphones? Can you simplify your product such that that common African somewhere can have access? Have an Africa-wide mindset always. Design products locally, but know that Africa is huge and the market is Africa. Which are the densely populated regions? How do you reach them? And how does your product scale across borders? And have that conversation, because as you can see here, Africa is hungry for insurance, and it means that we are really dealing with a market that has huge potential if we want to or intend to scale. So just as a simple slide here that talks about the opportunity. You have 1 billion registered mobile accounts. In fact, I was just looking at most recent statistics about a week or two ago, and I need to update this slide. We are seeing that 540 million active users on mobile wallets across, and on a daily basis, really across the continent. And I'd love that each one of you start looking at an Africa problem. I know Kenya is big, the market is huge, but don't close your mind towards just one country. Africa is huge, and Africa demands the solutions that we need. And we have this was 200 million about a year ago. We are now looking at about 540 million active users, and this is almost on a day-to-day basis using a mobile wallet. So that is that is tapping into an opportunity. Is your product built to tap into that opportunity to be able to spread and scale? And what is the capacity of the transactions that they are doing on a day-to-day basis? How many of these transactions are purely just transfers of money? How can insurance start tracking into this 23.8 billion worth of transactions on the mobile wallet? So that is a conversation that we should be having, and I'm hoping that my slides are still active and you can all see. Then before I give you some 3 or 4 examples of good partners to think about of scale, I'll bring out what is really, really important. And every single person here should have a slide that really explains your value proposition clearly. Your value proposition to Joseph and your value proposition to whatever customers you need to engage with who will help you to distribute this product. So we always start with customer centricity. You really need to have that keenness and understanding of who your client is. And some of this research doesn't have to be expensive. It just means you put on your walking shoes, you go out to the market, you go out closer to where your customer is, you go to whichever office, you go to a car bazaar if you're a motor, and you just ask questions and collect and get feedback, and be very ready to hear criticism, and be ready to change quickly. So customer centricity is something that I think we need to really focus on, because it can save you lots of money, lots of heartache if you can really understand what your customer is, and design products that really look into the customer. I know as InsurTechs, we have really large constraints because a lot of our product delivery is speaking personally, a lot of our product delivery is really based on the infrastructure and the structures that the insurance companies that we work with are. And we've very many times find ourselves caught up within their politics, caught up within their bureaucracy, caught up within how their processes are. And I'm glad that IRA is looking at different options, sandbox, etc., to see how they can help us just fast track that BimaLab, fast track that thought process, and reduce these barriers to innovation. That is really incredible. So you need to have that kind of human-centered design thinking, where if we can overcome the barriers to quick product testing and quick pilot and failure, we lack a lot of that, where we are testing and failing, and having that environment to do that quickly is very important. So how do we, perhaps this is maybe to IRA, how do we create or harness that environment where before products are approved, there's a process of quick test and failure, and clear milestones are put in place to enable that. And I know that we do go through a very gruesome process to get our product approved. And once it's approved, you just start celebrating before we can actually fail. So customer centricity, human-centered design, to understand really what the product, Joseph's products problems are, will be very critical. So the center point, which is supporting B2B business objective, for me is really what I feel is the heart of really what scale can be. Joseph is there, but Joseph uses M-Pesa. Joseph is in Fuliza. Joseph belongs to Chamas. Joseph perhaps has a circle that handles his supplies, his fishing supplies every day. And if you can talk to the heart of where Joseph is currently working, then there's a very big chance that if you can solve even their business objectives using insurance, then you'll get very closer to scaling, because you will be piggyback riding on infrastructure that has already been built, piggyback riding on B2Bs or customers who already have a very intricate understanding of their customer, and you'll just be borrowing quickly from there instead of trying to duplicate this from the start. And of course, lastly, there's technology, which, as you can see, the value proposition to any client or to any investor or to any customer such as Joseph cannot be technology. Technology is just the enabler to help you solve your problems better. So try and completely get yourself away from, oh yeah, it's fine, but I'm in a call now. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, so technology has got to just be your enabler, and don't over romanticize yourself with the tech. It is extremely important, but it's not what solves the problem directly. Yeah, so a little bit about our traction. Now, I will apologize. This slide was done last year. We now have doubled that customer base. We have about 65,000 customers. We are in Kenya and Malawi and are slowly building a project in DRC. And as I said, our mindset is really to harness and take Africa. So we build everything that we built with its ability to plug into different markets, and we do that with the different kind of partnerships that we get into. Strategic partners are so critical. B2B2B partners are extremely critical in helping you to grow. Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through 3 slides that show you how to think about distribution and scale. Some of your solutions, yes, are built for retail and may not, or your business models are not directly B2B, but my own personal experience has seen tremendous growth, especially of the MNO, which are mobile network operators, telecos, your Safaricoms, Airtels, Vodacom, MTN, Tigo, name it, across the continent. And you need to understand how to add for them value. The unfortunate thing with most of how we look at business development is, how can I get your business? And so that how can I get your business? How can I get insurance business? If I look at the cliche kind of or conventional broker agent relationship, which most of us insurtechs are, we have that mindset. But can we start taking a level above that? Let's go a notch higher. When you go to these MNOs, what are really their business drivers every single day? Every day they're grumbling over ARPU, the average revenue per user. How can insurance be used to drive that? The clients are trying to reduce churn. They're trying to ensure they retain their clients. And telcos have even just a threshold of 10,000 clients churning has a huge impact on their business. So how can your product be able to sustain that? How can you get them direct revenue in their day-to-day business? How can you give your distribution partners a competitive difference? And by answering some of these questions, new customer, brand and social impact, a lifetime of a customer in stickiness, then you can find that they'll embrace you, they'll bring you into their fold, and they'll give you access to their customers, which you might not have had access to in a normal scenario, just by walking door to door. I mean, if Airtel has 10 million customers now, you can imagine the efforts it would take for you to get to 10 million. You try to duplicate whichever models you can. And in insurance specifically, where literally nobody wakes up thinking about, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. So start challenging your product to see how your product solves other people's problems. And then your ability to scale becomes more feasible. This is just an example of one product that we launched with Airtel. Unfortunately, they stopped being personal distributors of devices, but the Blue Wave at the time had embedded a device cover for every single device, even the one that was 1,999 shillings. They called it Katwin, 999 shillings, and we insured it against theft. And we insured their other devices above 5,000 for damage and theft. And what we did is we embedded the solution within each and every sale. So there's a lot of work that goes into play before you can scale. Such products sometimes take 6 to 9 months before they see go to market. But you need to have a sense of patience. Slow growth sometimes is a lot more valuable than very quick perceived growth. So ask your sister where it is. So very quick perceived growth. So focus on on solving those business objectives. As I said, it takes time. Some projects took us even 15 months before we could see the market. I think having patience with scale is very important. Because most of us are sometimes lack patience, so we feel that the longer it takes, then the product is a failure, and we abandon it and we start looking for other measures. So I will plead that sometimes it takes patience to be able to be able to get to the scale that you want. And I'll give I'll give the other example, which is, let's say, banks and microfinance institutions. These also create a huge opportunity, and I'm sure a lot of insurtechs here are already partnering with different banks to offer different kind of value propositions. But remember, take it a step deeper. Don't just think about the APIs that you can get with the banks. Think about the kind of solutions that you can build and solve for them. Because remember, their core for MNOs are, they know how to sell data, they know how to sell voice, they know how to sell their normal customized products. But insurance is such a huge technical jargon for them. So you stand at an advantage to start building these products and services for them. When you look at banks, microfinance institutions, how do you help them with their day-to-day? They look at liabilities, they look at their assets, account dormancy. These are problems that they face every day. And they're not thinking about insurance. They're not built for insurance. So come and plug in insurance and help them solve their day-to-day. And you'll find that they'll now be able to help you to scale. And never, ever forget the customer. It's not about your tech. It's not about what how fancy things look like from your end. It's really the kind of value that you're bringing into the customer. They want reliable protection. They want simple processes. And if you can solve problems for the mass market, it becomes so easy to solve for the middle class. It becomes very easy to solve for the upper end segment who already have an appreciation for insurance. Address real needs, let them have access to trusted brands that they can be able to help reduce those trust challenges. So have that kind of customer centricity, customer value at the forefront if you intend to scale. So another way to look at scale is, what are your go-to-market strategies? As you can see, the center point for us is really the MNO, the microfinance institution, banks, SACCOs, cooperatives, because the microinsurance models, the margins are really small, so you need access to harness volumes. And if you can still borrow these thoughts, even within a retail mindset, where your margins are so much lighter. For us, our revenues per sale, per policy, are as low as 2 shillings or 20 bob. So it'll only make sense if you start looking at hundreds and thousands of policies. But for you, if you can still borrow some of these lessons at 1,000 bob per policy kind of margin, then you'll find that your growth levels are quite exponential and your revenues begin to make sense. And field agents are still very critical. As I said, trust is a huge gap in our market. So field agents, building structures where you still have a market presence. I've said that we have gone out to do some focus groups, and we end up being an insurance clinic because everybody has so many questions, but how to and where to report these concerns has always been an issue. And if we can start, even as insurtechs, still appreciating the value of field agents. And I know we are extremely excited about our tech, and it's supposed to grow and mushroom itself, but we cannot ignore that insurance as a product requires still that kind of that kind of a personal touch where people feel that they know who they can go and report to, if at all because many people feel that insurance is such a futuristic bargain, and who is going to be there to listen to me when I'm dead, and who is going to pay this money to my client? So they need to know that there's a point of contact, so to speak. And sometimes the insurance companies feel too remote, and field agents can be really good to bridge that. So even when you're building, see how your technology can be able to still enhance the field agency model, even if not as a core focus, but still having them to be somewhat closer to your end client. So that is really how I would share how you can impact and to scale. I hope it has been helpful, but remember that at the end of the day, our motto is really to change Joseph's world. So thank you. Hello. I hope I've not been.
Not at all. Thanks, Adelaide.
Thank goodness. Yes.
No, that's been wonderful to hear your reflections, and I think in particular how you sort of wove in your learnings from early on in your journey into the work that you did at Blue Wave. I think if you're part of the cohort, which not everyone on this call is, you heard me talk a lot about putting the customer first. I think, Adelaide, that statement of so often we get lost in the tech, we get lost in the solution, and we don't our user, we don't put the needs of our customer at the center of the work. And so it's been sort of, everyone knows, I've said it 1,000 times, but I think just hearing it again, and I think in this work, right, having your Joseph, having that person that reminds you or it pulls you back to the why of the work, I think is so important. So I really appreciate you just grounding us in that space. And then the second piece, so, next week we'll be joined by regulators from 4 countries across the continent. And I feel like we came up with Africa Open for Business, I believe is the title of the session. But Adelaide, I think you're right. The reality is that, if you're in Kenya, yes, you're building for this user, but the need is across the continent, because the reality is Joseph exists in every community. He might not be a fisherman, right? But the ability to, what it would mean to have the security of insurance, right, to someone who wouldn't need to lose their livelihood or their partner if they had basic protection and coverage. And so I think that push is so important, that it's so much bigger than just the market we have here. So, I think that's a really important push. But I would love to open to the community here, right? For those of you in the cohort, think about where you are in your journey, right? What are the specific pieces of advice or support you might need as you think about whether it's engaging with your customer, or it's thinking about how to grow your customer base, or thinking about what it means to engage a market in another region. But I'd love to sort of hear, what are you thinking about? And how can Adelaide help you through your journey of what you're grappling with as an entrepreneur? So I'll open. I'd love to, you can unmute and ask your question. You can raise your hand, whatever works best. If you put it in the chat, we'll ask you to ask it anyways, but we would love to hear from all of you.
Hi, Adelaide.
Hello.
My name is Kevin. As you clearly put it, insurance is quite a difficult product to sell, and I'm impressed by the way you made it more palatable to Joseph. Now, for us as startups in InsurTech business, it takes a lot to actually get to the level of having a sitting with Joseph and make him understand what our products are. And in this, I'm talking about funding, because you'll have to go above the line and below the line for you to be able to reach Joseph. So that is a big challenge. So how did you go about making the insurance product palatable to Joseph, considering that as startups we're still struggling with funding, right? And then number two, we have these partnerships where I'll take the product to an underwriter, and then the trend in Kenya is most of these insurance companies are not spending in terms of marketing the products. So you'll have a good product, give it to an underwriter, and then it just does a natural death because there's no tenacity in terms of actually marketing and letting people know about this product. So how do you navigate those kind of waters? Thank you.
Okay. So Kevin, firstly, just a quick question. What is your product? What are you selling? Who is your Joseph?
We are selling an on-demand travel insurance to travelers who are using public means to travel long distances, intercity travels.
Intercity. So that's between Nairobi,
Kisumu,
Mombasa.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll tell you this, Kevin. You don't need funding to understand what your Joseph requires. This is why. You only need 100 bob if you don't have cash for Uber or you don't have a vehicle. You need only 100 bob. Slide down to tea room. Spend a day. You and your co-founders and your 3 friends. So that's maybe 300, 400 bob, 1,000 bob at most. You need to just spend a morning at tea room, sitting there and asking those clients what their experience is, what are their challenges, what are their fears. You might be thinking that there's a problem there, and they'll tell you, excuse this, but Missy Jali for this trip, I don't really worry much when I'm buying my ticket about this travel. I might tell you, oh my gosh, for 10 shillings, you mean I can be covered up to maybe 1 million or whatever in case this guy is in an accident. So you absolutely do not need funding to understand your Joseph more intimately. I, at some point in time, lived in Langata, which was very near to Kibera. I would walk just one morning. I would walk down to Kibera and I would sit with the lady who is cooking chapos there, and I'll ask her, what is insurance? Have you heard of insurance? What do you think about this? I did not need any grants. I did not need any funding to be able to understand the client better. So we need to, first of all, know that if we start creating mental barriers as to what we need to be able to achieve something, because I can almost say that we have there's a lot of a rush, there's a craze when you see startups raising, and there's it becomes like a freak show. You start feeling like you need to raise for you to get to that level, and it's all many times just PR. And take it from me, Kevin, many times it's pure PR. We need to get out of that mindset, first of all, because the moment we do, we'll be able to start really focusing on what we are doing. And the more some of this insurance issue, the Africa insurance issue, doesn't need more money to be thrown at it. It needs all of us to start really understanding on what problems the client really needs, and do that 100 bob trip to tea room, 100 bob trip to Easy Coach, 100 bob trip to whatever bus station there is, and just spend your whole day there. Speak to the conductor. Let him give you statistics and data of a good day. On a good day, I have 40 clients and to Kisumu. On a bad day, I go and I come back twice, especially the Nissans. They do 2 trips sometimes to Nakuru and back, Nakuru and back. And you just start harnessing data and even take a trip to Nakuru with them. Buy that ticket for 1,200 shillings. You don't need a PSD grant of 100,000 to figure out what the problem is. I think we sometimes make this issue too complicated than it is, and we lose the script completely. So try and see within your power. And I'm not trying to say maybe 100 bob, maybe, but I really believe, Kevin, if you're running a startup, you have that money to do just those simple. And if you decide that every single week for your insurtech, you're going to do that personal trip to figure out what problem you're really solving. And it's until that point when we all really start thinking beyond fundraising, thinking beyond investors, thinking beyond grants, thinking beyond how amazing our tech is. I mean, I tell you, we run some schemes, 45,000 smallholder farmers through Excel. And it's working. And if you need to even have a paper and a pen, and people who are buying those tickets as they enter into their Nissans and it's working, you're fine. And no one is going to frown at you. We just need to focus on whether these solutions that we are really designing are working, or are we completely lost in the circus of fundraising and all. And it gets really tempting and it gets really noisy, Kevin, I understand. I mean, when you see your competitors or when you see people fundraising, you get into a panic and you forget why exactly you're doing what you're doing. So let's erase our mindsets around fundraising and grants and get into sensitive, intricate relationships with the problems you are solving, and most specifically with our clients. And you do not need money. You do not need a lot of money to do it. Just take and say that every month, you as Kevin, you're going to do a trip, intercity trip. You're going to be in Kisumu this month. You're going to do that ride, and you're going to talk. When you stop at Delamere, interact with those people when they're buying their yogurt. When you stop in Nakuru, interact with them so that you really understand what their challenges are within insurance as they travel. And I guess you will get so much insights, even just for yourself, to improve your product better, to start, and you'll see, you will immerse yourself within the problem. And you will find yourself offering better solutions. Don't wait for Prudential, don't wait for FSDA to give you a grant to do it. You get your 100 bob, go to town, go to tea room, figure out exactly what your customers need. And trust me, that is the only way we'll start getting our M-Pesa solutions, because we are not thinking or waiting for people to, we're feeling entitled, like I need to be paid so that I can attract this amount of money to do it. And your time is going, and these solutions are being created. So pick yourself up, go out there and figure it out. Marketing, it's going to be such a tall order to be able to get the insurance company to market your product. Right now, there's an avalanche of insurtechs everywhere. Everybody is looking for APIs to be able to sell their products better. Insurance companies, unfortunately, still have the structures of conventional business. There's still a little bit of time needed. Speaking locally, at least, South Africa might be a little bit more advanced. They have the cell captive models, so they can be able to partner quite differently with insurtechs, where insurtechs almost play the role of the insurer, which means that a speed to innovation really works. But that is just South Africa. We have not seen those cell captive models spreading out on this side of the savannah in West Africa. So we need to understand that we're dealing with insurance companies that unfortunately even are still trying to innovate. They're changing their technology. They're changing out of their legacy systems. So your problem, Kevin, is not featuring in their boardrooms, unfortunately. And it's going to take a lot before they can prioritize you. They have to still think about the huge brokers. They have to still secure their large premiums to keep their companies afloat. So, and they are already considering digital transformation, but it's going to take a bit of time. So what you need to do is just have that innovation. As I said, when you look at all who your target market is, and you say that this month we're just going to focus on Easy Coach. Easy Coach is going to be our intercity client, and you call it the client of the month. And you build relationships with Easy Coach. Have them see if they can even put a flyer on each buses. And putting a flyer might not be that expensive. So try to have inexpensive ways to think about marketing, because I have dealt, trust me, over my years with many of these insurance companies, and we do have huge needs when it comes to marketing. But it goes back to my conversation of the B2B client. if you can harness the B2B infrastructure, they already have access to the client. And if you're selling for them a value proposition that works, you might save yourself a lot of time trying to get the insurance company to market, but the B2B partner, if they see value in your product, will very likely market it. So I think even for you, Intercity, there's some really exciting ideas on how you can market. I'll be very happy to engage with you after to just see how we can do a brainstorm session, maybe 30 minutes or an hour, and just share a little bit of thoughts on how that can work. But I guess if we are really going to start solving the problems, we need to remove our sense of entitlement completely, throw it under and flush it in the drain, and just know that we're Nikubaya and we are going to hit this thing hard on your own, and you'll see that you'll start making some steps forward, because this investment is there, true, but it'll only come in when you really have a solid story, you really have solid traction, and to do that solid traction, you need to make that 100-bob trip down to town. I hope I don't sound too harsh, Kevin, and I hope this is helpful. Yeah,
no,
sorry. I didn't mean to scold you.
Thank you for the feedback. However, I think my question,
yeah,
I think what I'm looking at is, in terms of understanding who Joseph is, we already know him, because before we come up with a product, those are some of the things that we actually did for us to come up with this particular product. So my question was centered around insurance and an insurance company is actually take comfort in crowds. That is the numbers, right? And by me using my 100 bob to go to Kibera, I won't get the volumes needed, right? To pull in the crowd that will make this product of mine attractive. So my question was centered around that.
So before you pull in the crowds, because trust me, when you do even that 100 bob ride, and before you pull the crowds, you need to ensure that your story is solid and you have a deep understanding of the need. Like literally, if you go to tea room, and every single day when you're there, out of 10 people, 8 people have bought your product or are willing to buy, or have even given you the 20 bob, 30 bob, 50, whatever premiums you do. Out of 10, if 8 people are buying your product, you do that today, you do that tomorrow, you do that the next day, and then you take that statistics to Sanlam, perhaps if they're the ones who are going to insure the cover, assuming. If you take that statistics to Sanlam and say, look, I've been here for, I've been doing this for the last 3 months, and guess what? These are the facts on the ground. Every out of 10, 80% of them are buying my product. I think, Kevin, you have a very different conversation. And I guess we need to get to that kind of data-driven decision-making before, and perhaps that is also our weakness. We need to harness facts, and we need to harness data and use that data as a marketing tool. So I'll give you the example of the M&O conversations we had. I've told you we have had some of these projects. Literally, you're selling and you're designing and you're roping in the MDs at that high level. It's taking almost 9, 10, 11 months to sell. And what you're doing is you're roping them in on a value proposition that works. And when it works, guess what? Vodacom, Airtel, Safaricom are willing to put in $1 million to market your product at above the line. But have you gone through the 15 months of painstaking value proposition strategy? So it's never going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be painful. It's going to cost you, but try and find ways to be able to sell that value proposition. If your value proposition is solid, you are going to get the $1 million marketing spend approved. And if your value proposition, Kevin, is not working, then it means pivot, cancel that, and redefine your product and move to the next. Because if you cannot prove that value proposition and get that person to sign that marketing budget, then it means that product is not going to push. So there's no miracle pill that I can explain, and it's not going to be easy, but we need to start just taking those steps, and get that data, literally show them. Guess what? Get into a pilot, go physically, see out of 10, how many have bought? Only 1. Then now you ask yourself, okay, even if you go to any insurance company, they're going to have challenges with marketing that and reaching you to scale. So go back and pivot until you have even almost that value proposition is so obviously required. So I wish I could tell you this is how you will get the marketing budget, but unfortunately, it's just what I'm telling you. Have a very solid value proposition that even the partner, the B2B partner, is willing to put in a fund to support the progress, or the growth rather, sorry.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Adelaide.
You're welcome.
And I do think, you know, some of the most powerful learnings are on the ground with your user. My background is in starting schools, which is a little different. Sorry, I have a little one. But my best learnings were with parents. And then when school actually started, were with my students. And they made such a big difference on, early on, before we were even a thing, we spent so much time engaging with parents that we built our early adopter base, and they helped to sell, right? And it's different, of course, Kevin, than what you're doing, because you need more numbers than we did to start a school. But I do think the power of connecting with your customer and getting them to be the voice of why would they want to use your product can really have incredible impacts on your ability to get users, particularly when you're at the pre-customer stage. And so, figuring out who those relationships need to be with can be really powerful. With that, of course, as always, I'll open. As I said before, you can drop your questions in the chat, but we'll always ask you to say them out loud. So we'd love if you want to unmute or raise your hand. If there's a specific question to Adelaide, I think that question also touched on the funder space as well, which I know comes up a lot as we think about scale. So feel free, whatever sort of key things you're wondering, we'd love to hear from all of you.
So nice that we can now just wrap up and go home, right? I hope.
We might be able to. I know we always have Elias does not like to leave without at least asking one question, as well as Moses, who's here from the IRA. So of course, if either of you have anything you would like to ask, or something you think would be helpful for Adelaide to share more broadly, we'd love to hear from both of you as well.
Mine is just to say thank you, and I really appreciated the case studies that Adelaide has given, because they are very relevant and practical to our market. So I feel they resonate well to the cohort members. So and I'm happy that you've also you've said you're accessible.
Yeah.
So we are happy that you're able to do that for the cohort members.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm back again, Adelaide.
Yes, Kevin. I'm glad I didn't scare you off.
No, that's I'm back.
Good.
I'm someone who gives a buffalo approach to issues. That is, head on, which is fine.
Awesome.
Now, you talked about customer retention. Acquisition can be easy, but retention is a big headache, given the many products that are coming in the market. So probably I would like to hear your view about or know what kind of marketing programs you're running for this particular retention issue, given that it's a service industry? And then how do you guard against complacency in customer service? Thank you.
That is a nice question, Kevin, and it'll help me give a little bit of some background. So for us, especially in the microinsurance space, customer retention is so critical because one client can literally destroy or make you lose your entire business model, can make you lose your entire sense of purpose if they leave. And I'll give you a few examples. We deployed in my past experience, not with Blue Wave, we deployed a product with a telco in different markets, as I said. And in this particular market, Zambia, they were so quick. They were so excited about it. It meant it was the whole flow in Africa. Wow, we need this, we need this. So they took it up very quickly and boom, they wanted to have this incredible impact and show that they are the ones who are going to completely remake and remodel this. And what they did is they built the product as what we call an automatic model. So basically every single one, if you can remember Oprah, you win a car, you win a car, you win a car, like literally there's no competition. Every single person in that in their database was rewarded with free insurance, and insurance penetration, which was barely 1%. Overnight was almost at 16, 17%. And it was such a humongous feat. And of course, all the partners, insurance companies, the administrators, everybody's really celebrating this huge leap. And then boom, they're all now starting to ask after a month, what is the product? How are we going to benefit from this? And the questions are coming in later because a lot of this was either brought into the market too quickly, and now the results are wanting. People don't know how to claim. People don't, like there's a lot of things. So boom, 3-4 months and a product that was bringing in close to 100,000 worth of premiums monthly, literally. We're looking at about 10 million Kenya shillings monthly, goes down the drain in minutes because there's no really deeper understanding of what the value of what the product is. And then you look at some other markets, let's say Ghana, where growth was so slow. Growth was 1,000 clients have opted in, boom, they celebrated. 5,000 have opted in this month, boom, they have celebrated. Another 3 months, they're barely at 10,000, boom, they celebration. And then 2-3 years down the line, they've now have close to maybe that 1 million clients. And the product is sustainable. It's growing. People are understanding. They're growing higher and higher into the product requirements, and that is the approach of what a good customer retention looks like. You have to grow with your customer. Don't frown at you're just one matatu provider who just goes to one particular region, and you're making them deeply understand what this product means to them and how it's going to change how they do business and what value you're adding, and celebrate even those small milestones where you can give a lot of value to your customer, and watch that customer become your champion, watch that customer make you grow a lot more business. So even when we are talking about scale, and there's such a huge conversation and hunger for scale, but let's not forget that sometimes even the slow approach is sometimes the wise approach. So there's a microfinance entity in the Philippines, I believe, that is usually such a huge case study of how successful microinsurance can be. And what they did is this microfinance institution deploys a microinsurance product, and they stick posters in their branches, and they just get hundreds of people flowing in every month. They're still focusing on their core business, but just hundreds of people are flowing in, and they just do a very good work at servicing these clients, and they do a very good job at marketing their claims process, etc. And right now, I believe they're looking at close to 5 million customers in a span of about 8 to 9 years. So we need to, and I know that, Kevin, you've talked about money to get you to the 8 to 9 years, but sometimes let's also rethink skill and rethink more of value to the customer such that we retain them. Because I have seen how 3 million clients can come on board overnight, and you seriously start having an epileptic kind of seizure because the excitement you just can't contain. And I've seen what it meant to lose all that overnight. So let's have a bit of a cocktail on how we approach customer retention, how we approach customer service. You can do so well by just being present with your clients and making affordable instruments to make your customers feel heard. I've told you about times where in the market and we end up being an insurance kiosk because everybody has questions. I got this claim, I never got paid. How do I do this? And they just want somebody to help them, even if it's not related to your product. They just perhaps have a medical question or a funeral question, and you need to be able to answer beyond just what you understand. And customers value that. And the impact of it is not going to be grandiose. It's not going to be. But if you continuously just invest on making sure that that customer really understands what they're up and about, and really just serving them quickly. And you don't even need to have a fancy call center, Kevin. You just need to ensure that your customers know how to reach you, whether it's an SMS, whether it's a WhatsApp message, whatever it is. Just build that infrastructure where they can reach you and they feel safe and they know that they can. And I told you, insurance is all about people being very antsy about whether this claim will be paid. So focus on that, even on your solution, before focusing on how you collect the premium. Focus on how you're going to serve them. And I think the questions about customer service and respond to them quickly. I mean, I'm not even an expert in customer care. I think I have a lot of room to still grow, but I really value responding to my customers quickly. And I respond to questions. I take troubles of Trident. I take troubles of Explico. I listen, and you just give them the comfort that, you know what, let me see if I can make a call, because you have more access to some of these insurance companies than they do out there in the village. So just give them that knowledge, and don't look for Safaricom level customer service, where there's a whole choir singing on top of the mountain on how amazing their customer care is. You might not reach there very soon, but you can just make a commitment to ensure that all your customers that you have feel heard, and take it on a personal level, and just put in instruments. SMS me on this line if you need this kind of a question, or just SMS us. That's what I mean, that you don't really need a contact center, but just ensure that your customers have a channel that they can reach you, because that is usually the very tricky area. And then focus on serving them, and then focus on growth where your customer really understands what they are, because that is really what will retain them, and it'll make it very difficult for them to churn. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Kevin, I think, we're going to, in about a week or two, we're going to talk about sort of vision, mission, culture, because I think that's sort of a core driver to what an organization values. And I haven't spent a lot of time looking at Blue Waves, but I would say, right, if Joseph's story is front and center, then that already shows that there's an organizational lens to putting the customer first. And I think that's important when we think about how we want to lead organizations. Again, we may get lost in the solution, but really thinking about how do you want to lead this organization? What is going to be important? What will your customers know you for? And often, right, that vision, mission, and your values play a core role in saying, this is what we put first as an organization. And as you onboard teammates, as you talk to them about the work that you're doing, ideally, right, you put that at the center. So every new employee, I'm guessing at Blue Wave, knows Joseph's story. They understand why that matters. They understand why they're doing this work and who they're serving. And I think that puts a focus on the customer and their needs. So of course, there's lots of customer service training you could do, but I really think that core is being able to come back to who you are as an organization and the impact that you want to have. And then how do you ensure that each employee, including yourself, right, is constantly modeling that when you're interacting with your clients or your customers. It's just sort of another lens to think about from your own sort of, Kevin, as you think about what is showing up as priority for your organization, what do you value most? And then knowing that that will get sort of reiterated and implemented by every teammate that comes on. Yeah.
Like even just putting a culture of any employee that you're hiring to, before they're officially hired, they need to spend a few days with your client out there in the market, and just physically really understanding what this problem that you're solving is. And if they can experience it, then they will help you improve the product further. I mean, we always, even with every induction, as the story of Joseph has become such a, it's like, oh my gosh, it's literally like a broken record. We talk about it to every single person that we have. And we see that it helps them now connect with what we're trying to do. And they empathize with Joseph's story, which is literally almost 80% of every African story. The Harambee scenario is known to every single one of us. And they start relating to that problem quite personally, and see how you can be able to relate even with your product to that particular level. And you can only do that by engaging with your client more frequently than not, in very inexpensive ways. Get every new employee to do one intercity ride and talk to the people, and they come back, and now they can immerse themselves in understanding what your solution is, and just find ways to get them to really understand who your customer is, and they'll pass that on when they're serving the client, and they'll feel them, they'll understand them, and they'll serve them better. And the retention levels will not be a conversation, because it's more than just insurance for you. It's really understanding what bothers them most.
Yeah, I think that's a great reflection. And we'll be joined by Tonya Matiso in 2 weeks, who many of the cohort know from the early interview process, as well as moderating many of these calls. But one of the things when we were talking about this session, I was like, okay, we got to think about scale and who are we going to bring on? And, it's got to be someone who's doing scale across Kenya and regional. And Tonya sort of paused and was like, scale is about getting more customers. She's like, we make it really complicated. She's like, but scale is your ability to get more customers using your product. And she's like, so it comes back to, you have to deeply understand your customers. She's like, even to scale to a different area in Kenya, right? You may shift your approach because your customer changes. And so I think that often we get lost in the, well, we need more funding to this, or but we lose sight of the customer in the process. And that really is what's driving your ability to scale. So I think that your regrounding in that focus is really important.
I see a question here. Yeah, there's a question here. Great presentation, Adelaide. Thank you. What's your claim process like? Did you say there's a rule here where everybody has to read out their question out loud?
I did. Joel, come on. We totally want to hear you.
Guys,
There we
I'm a
go.
bad flu, so excuse my voice. This has been so insightful. I resonate with everything you've said, to be honest, and I couldn't say it better. Now, my question is on the claims process. I think everyone is focused mostly on the distribution and selling of the products, but I'm always curious about how people go about their claims process, as well as what has been your learning around micro insurance and claims, because I feel like that would drive more adoption, as opposed to just pushing it to the customer. So that's what I'm kind of curious about.
I love the question because it helps me to kind of just bring out the idea of we need to start selling claims process and claims payment and claims benefits beyond what the product is. And I agree with you. I think if we start building our platforms, if we start building our solutions fast to give the client that comfort of this is how to claim, because that is usually the biggest the biggest monkey, like the claims process. I wouldn't be able to have much experience on the conventional claims process. We usually just have a handful of clients, motor insurance, health insurance here and there, and we rarely almost process that. But we have a cut in stone kind of process where we know what we do as soon as a claim is lodged. We lodge it from the code, the USSD code. We lodge it. It gives us a notification. The people on the claim side already know, automatically reach you out if it's a conventional product, and they walk you through. It's usually very manual, actually. But the one that I could share as experience that matters is the client that we have in Malawi, where this season we have about 62,000 farmers. But last season we had about 45,000 smallholder farmers, and we offer them a funeral benefit. And for this particular client, in a good week, we can do 800 claims in a week. Basically, some are valid, some are not. Some are old, and we have to very quickly iterate and look into that. And this particular client, as I said, for the longest time we were serving them with an Excel sheet. But when it came to the claims processing, 800, 200 claims, in fact, on a very busy day per day. And it forced us to design a platform just to help to collect the claims documentation and the claims approval process a lot better. So we work very closely with the insurance company for this. So you see, this is an innovation that was coming, or sometimes not even innovation. It's addressing a need per se at that time to help your employees have a better time, because they'll be grumbling if they have to literally look at 200 claims every day. They'll have this serious fatigue, and I'll have to be hiring hundreds of people to handle that kind of an avalanche. So really, depending on how your claims process looks like, or your claims numbers look like, there may be a need to innovate even your tech just to be able to suit this kind of a process. Sometimes, like for this particular client, we have built the tech just for this particular client to be able to serve them better, and they're so excited about it. They're looking at other ways to give us other kind of products and services, and that's kind of what you need to be able to scale, because just how you serve this client and how you make them see that they are a priority will open for you a new product line, which you didn't have to start doing the business development work to create. And hopefully within the next 6 months or so, we'll have a completely new revenue stream from this client out of only the client's request, and just how we handled their big challenge to actually serve their farmers, smallholder farmers better. So yes, claims is quite an important monkey. Microinsurance, as you can imagine, is heavily administrative, and most insurance companies, their systems are not built to handle these kind of volumes. They're not going to start building in a whole line just to handle your 800 claims a week or 1,000. There's a week we even did 1,200, analyzed and processed 1,200 claims, and we always measure ourselves with how quickly we have a success rate of that claim settlement, how quickly was a claim settlement, and we always try to see how quickly we can do that. That's usually like the game of the main aim of the game, and that's why we even developed the tech. So let's start having a claims product rather than a microinsurance or a motor product or a fire product or a travel insurance product. Let's have a claim product, because you want to pride yourself with how quickly you can process claims. But really, Joel, it's still a journey for all of us. We are so far from reaching where we need to be. So don't think that this is any kind of me trying to make it look like it's so grand. I think there's still so much room for us to improve. And we are all in the same journey with you. Claims processing is still such a huge drama, because most of the process is not fully ours. We still have to wait for approvals from the insurer. We still have to wait for DVs to be issued before those DVs are actually payable. And we still have to wait patiently, because the structures that the insurance companies have are built for that kind of a conventional process. So it's still, yes, a problem, but I think that even if we start now changing our focus towards this kind of a mindset, then there'll be some really good progress. And I see that Elias has put up his hand, and I don't know if this is the time, Emma, that I should start panicking.
I told you he asks at least one, and sometimes he asks up to three. So Elliot, you better be ready. Elliot, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, Elias. Go easy on me.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, thanks for basically that great session. So if you had one bullet and you have three people standing in front of you, one is the insurance company, the other person is the regulator, and the customer, who would you shoot when it comes to problems that people face on schedule?
Gosh, and then the insurance companies are also in this panel right here. Oh my. I think I'll answer it at the end of all this. I definitely not shoot. I'll never shoot Joseph. Joseph came to me with a problem, and I need to solve his problem. So he's the one person I need to put on wings on so that he can fly.
Mm-hmm.
The regulator in the past has shown some good efforts. We were really keenly looking forward to seeing the sandbox, the sandbox fly. I think that would have been really a huge game changer for insurtechs to just kind of start dipping their toes into putting their words, like their mouth where their money is, and really trying to show that we really wanted to innovate, and this was a barrier, and now that barrier is lifted. So if the Bima box for the regulator flies, I think insurtechs such as ourselves will really start having a platform where we'll have zero excuses whatsoever to be able to fly. So good initiatives there. I think I'm now beginning to cock my gun, but I guess for most of us, our largest challenge is insurance companies. And that's just because many times we feel bitter. We do so much work and we get barely 10%, especially for microinsurance. And of course, that is a regulatory issue per se, but insurance companies could fight a little bit harder if they saw the value that most of us middlemen do to create value for them and their clients, because they walk home with 90%. So you'll expect that they'd really do a lot more hand-holding. You'd expect them to really just embrace insurtechs as much as they can and support them as much as they can. And if we can see the level of support that we used to see, especially when I was still in the mainstream business, I used to see insurance companies sign off breakfasts of millions, 1 million, 2 million shillings breakfast, and trips to Mauritius and Dubai to their agents. And can you imagine what 1 million shillings can do to an insurtech right here? Can you imagine what Kevin Jogger will do with 1 million shillings if he's just given that money to go out there and really proof test his product and be able to see if he can put in his his abilities to test, pilot, fail quickly, and innovate his product. So I think the regulator can just do as much, because we just need that platform that can enable us to flourish. And the modes that BimaLab, this opportunity here, is already creating that environment. But we still stuck with at the mercy of the insurance companies. So we need to be freed from that mercy. If cell captive models can come into Kenya, I think most of us insurance companies will start, insurtechs will start literally proving ourselves true to what we have been saying. And the regulator can just do as much, but we still so far caught up in waiting for board meetings to be done before decisions can be made. And very many times we know that we are not the priority, but we have the clients, we have the aggregators, but sometimes we just need even 100,000 shillings. Sacrifice one day a breakfast that you give your agents, and say that, you know what, we're going to size out the insurtechs in Kenya. How many are they? 10. These are the ones who are performing well. Let's give them 100,000 as a marketing initiative. Don't call us for breakfast. There's even COVID. We don't need breakfast. We just need APIs, and we need access to marketing. And we are working so hard to give insurance companies 90% of this premium anyway. So I think if insurance companies can start seeing the potential that insurtechs can bring and start harnessing us, rather than telling us, oh, no, you bring us, our business models are not built in the conventional way. We cannot survive on these commissions. They are so marginally small, but we need the facilitation to get us to the next level. And even here, the regulator cannot save us. So I think I've cocked my gun. I've put in like 2 bullets, maybe they're 10, a bazooka. I would shoot the insurance companies now. Wake up. Some insurance companies are trying to build insurtechs inside themselves. It's so annoying. You cannot do all this. Just give us that 100K, give us that 1 million, Bob. Give Motishwa that breakfast that they put for Eagle Africa and all these huge fancy, this brokers will find their way of bringing them business anyway. They don't need trips to Mauritius that cost millions of dollars. So get insurance companies to start being serious about this 90% premium that we are giving them, and just let them know that commissions are good. Administration fees is good. In fact, administration fees was scraped off, unfortunately, but we need to survive. We need to survive today. We need to go to the market and bring this business 90% literally to them. So I'm definitely pulling out my bazooka, Elias. I'm shooting insurance.
I've just realized that you've just taken the regulator and the insurance company and one bullet and went through their heads. I think the guy that was standing at the back was the regulator. But yeah, you made me go and get my my Manchester United jersey, because that is the guy I need really to shoot our coach. He's not doing really well.
Yes.
Just by what you've kind of stated, some people say that insurtechs are highly interested on grants, and that kind of puts them in a room that they don't really want to grow and get to another phase. Or ideally, we know there are various stages: egg, pupa, larva, adult, and most of the time, if you get to adult, no one will take care of you. Is there an issue whereby insurtechs have refused to grow purposely because of grants?
Absolutely.
And how we basically get out of that?
Absolutely. And I learned my hard lesson. I was also in that department, Elias. You know, there's some times when you're starting your insurtech, you're so, you think that the world owes you a lot. Oh, you think you're so brilliant. Oh, look at you, you've started an insurtech, and you expect people to applaud you. But I think you need to snap out of that very quickly. And the sooner you snap out of it, I think the better it is for all of us. I think there are much cheaper ways to get capital. And as I've said, insurance companies, we work for only 10% of all the revenues we collect for them. So I think if insurtechs can start building a model where they have really good relationships with their insurance companies, then this fantasy of investment and this bottleneck that we put in ourselves that we're waiting for grants and investment will snap out of it very quickly, because I have burned through investment money very quickly, and you need to see if you've made like a tangible growth because of money. So insurance is not a throwing money at it problem. It isn't. So, but I know that there are ways that we can get support from insurance companies specifically before you get to the stage where now you're gaining real capital, or you're gaining real investors, because you've really proved, you've really taken time to proof study your product, you've really pivoted, you've really failed, and you've really picked up, and you have tangible statistics and data. So yes, we need to snap out of that entitlement mentality. Having a startup doesn't reward you with the heavens of grants and all. It's not, and as you will know very soon that it will not. But dissociating ourselves from growth that is only pegged on capital from an investor or a grant from a particular partner, and innovating, be very passionate about the solution you're offering, and know that this solution is really making a difference, and ask the customer whether they're happy with it, and then prove your case, work closely with the insurance companies. And it will be really good, Elias, if there's some kind of influence that can go out there. How can we, beyond BimaLab, beyond fundraising, I think there has got to be that middle ground where there's that angel investment that comes from the insurance companies that they are serving. That angel investment will help them to really pivot. And if I had this kind of knowledge 5 years ago, I think I'd be very far. But perhaps what BimaLab can do, and BimaBox, if it finally launches, is to create that middle ground before they're capital ready, so that some of these products, before you're struggling, because it's such a headache to deal with the every month you have to give a status report to your investors, and if you're no numbers streaming in, it gives you hypertension. So let's see how to start creating that that incubation of capital raising with small capital. I gave you 100,000, Mr. Motisho or Joel. What did you do with the 100,000 last month? And you can show tangible value, because out of this 100,000, I'll be able to give you 10 million. And from 10 million, I'll be able to give you, like, there has to be that middle ground, I guess, so that we start changing our perspectives around finance and obsession of investment. I don't know if that handles your question, though.
Yeah, it has. And maybe let me then ask the very last question. Last year, we had 3 insurtechs awarded with some money, and one of the insurtechs had to come and tell us, no, we need to pay rent. And this kind of brings me to this question. If I give you 2 options, one of the options is to give you grant funding, and the other option is to give you strategic partnerships. Which one would you go for?
Every single person will go for grant funding, but I think strategic partnerships is a key. Because I have seen money come in, and I've seen that money does not give you any kind of mileage in regards, if you do not have a solid business development strategy, if you do not have a scale strategy, you're going nowhere with money. Even a grants, of $1 million, and grants come with so many technical ties, technical assistant ties. You're just going to pay consultants from here to Timbuktu. You'll not be able to access that money. So grants, snap out of grants, because grants gives you technical. Many people think that grants is money in your bank. It's not. It's technical experience coming in to help you build. But I think for me, if I was to be given 2 eggs as you've offered me, I'll take strategic partners any moment to grants, because those strategic partners are the ones that will invest, will give you your ability to expand. They're the ones who will give you the traction that I dream of, the day when I have 5 or 6 investors on my inbox begging to give me money. And if you will not get there if you're waiting for grants to come in. We have to start being headhunted for grants. Like literally the French embassy is calling you, please come and set up. We have this and these investors, and we want to open for you these markets. You have to get there. But with waiting for handouts and waiting to be applauded and given some standing ovation for setting up a startup, no. Grants,
Right.
no. Yeah.
So I think I've asked my 3 questions. I better remove my Manchester jersey because I'm done with that, coach. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Amen to that, Adelaide. Okay, good. Let's get insurance companies to get up and help us a little bit more.
Yeah. And hopefully, I think part of what's been great about BimaLab is that there is a focus on partnerships with insurance companies and how do we work more intentionally to support one another, to find the best ways to interact. And I think that the more that there is exposure and opportunities to keep the conversation going, the better insurance companies will understand how to help. But I mean, hey, if they want to not go on that vacation and pass the money this way, that is totally fine too.
Yes.
But I think, that is part of what we're hoping, is that we really do figure out how to help people understand what insurtechs need, which I think is really, really important.
And
Yeah.
I think you're right, Emma.
Mhm.
It's not an issue that they don't want to. I think it
Yeah.
has not been structured in a way that they can understand that aha light bulb moment, like, good, this could actually work. I guess putting that structure in place is what will be also a big game changer.
Yeah, and I think it is about, it's about part of this program is about how do we build an ecosystem, right, that is enabling to the insurtech space, which involves getting all the players, right? So getting the insurance companies to understand what's needing, having insurtechs advocate for what they need in order to actually make an impact, to educate funders, right, where it's not just about the grant money, but figuring out, right, what is going to enable this ecosystem to grow. And I think that is part of what we're working on, in addition to supporting the insurtechs in this program, is to think about how we build a more enabling ecosystem holistically, which I think is key. And it is about figuring out how do we help people understand what's actually needed. I think also is a key part in all of this. Yeah.
And I have nothing against grants. I mean, if you're getting grants, good for you. Make them work. Grants do work. They do help. I believe I'm not against grants. I'm not against investment. We are currently raising $1 million US. So it is, investment is very crucial for growth. But I guess before you get to that place, you need to have the clarity of mind on exactly what this investment is going to do, what kind of scale and growth you're projecting, and it has got to be very tangible, because with a little you did this much. With so much more, you can get this far, and there's this tangible evidence of when you're getting there. But before you get there, what is your thought process? What has been your thought process so far? And I think my message every time is just do away with any sense of entitlement. You're in this gutter. Put your muscles out and get it done, grants or not.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think, right, funding is good, but thinking about how you use it is key. So yeah, given we are very close to the hour, and I told you on a good session, Elias asks 3 questions. So that's a good thing. It's a big compliment. And
Good.
he pulled out the
Thank
big
you.
guns with that question.
And he put on the t-shirt. He put on the red
and he
t-shirt.
put on the t-shirt. But yeah, I would love, if there's any sort of last question that must be asked before we close. As Adelaide has already shared, she is open to continuing these conversations. So obviously this is not your last moment to ask the question. that, please feel free to. And of course, for those, yeah, or else we'll just turn it to Adelaide to share her last thoughts with us.
Okay, so I think I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. It's very humbling to be here. I will say I do have a serious imposter disorder, the imposter syndrome. I know that I have quite a long way to go in Blue Wave, within this insurance space, within the continent, to be able to even be remotely near reaching the vision that I have for my beloved continent. So it's very humbling just to be called at this very early stage of the business to talk to you. I will take my little pill so that I can handle my imposter syndrome challenges. But I'm absolutely happy to share these insights. I think Emma and the team are going to share with you my email address. Feel free to email me if you want, if you have a question, if you'd like some more clarity on this the kind of like B2B to C partnerships, and you want to grow that a little bit more. I see Eva Baraza opening and closing her mic. I don't know if ever you have a question, but if not, thank you so much for the opportunity. And these conversations don't end. We grow every day, we scale every day, we fail every day. So I'm sure that we'll be here for a while just handling this.
Thank you. And I think, I agree, right? It's chipping away, right? Celebrating the wins, acknowledging the opportunities, and chipping away at this, problem, right? That affects 80% of the continent or more, right? That are the Josephs that need this to enable security in their lives, right? And so I think putting that customer at the center and realizing how important this work is key. And with that, I just want to thank everyone so much for being here. Adelaide, nothing but gratitude. I enjoyed this session so much. And I just really want to thank everyone for being here, and for your willingness to continue to provide support to the companies here as they work to grapple with the challenges we're all facing, and how we continue to create solutions that really work. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you guys for the kind comments and sentiments in the chat. I'm really humbled, Asante.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. And with that, everyone have a wonderful Wednesday. That is the day of the week. Have a wonderful Wednesday evening. And, we will hang around in case there's anything you need. But otherwise, we hope you all have a great rest of your night.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks again, Adelaide.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. And again, a huge thank you to Adelaide. It was so wonderful.